Microsoft buys Activision, plus some great dev tools and apps this week on The Download. Welcome back to another episode of The Download. I'm your host, Christina Warren, Senior Cloud Advocate at Microsoft. And in honor of the big gaming news, I thought that I'd wear my special gold Xbox controller t-shirt because, why not? All right, so it was sort of a slow week on the dev news front, but we've still got lots to talk about, so let's do this thing. Okay, so the first story, and you'll forgive me if it doesn't have a huge developer angle, but it is huge, is that Microsoft, my employer, owner of the YouTube channel that you are watching right now, plans to acquire gaming juggernaut Activision Blizzard for a staggering $69 billion. Nice. Activision Blizzard is home to franchises like Warcraft, Diablo, Overwatch, Call of Duty, Candy Crush, yes, Activision Blizzard also owns King, and many more. And yes, the plan is for as much Activision Blizzard stuff as possible to come to Game Pass. Now, I don't have a whole lot to say about this, except wow, and no pun is actually intended there, but the deal is expected to close sometime next fiscal year, pending regulatory approval, blah, 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 blah. I've got show notes in the description down below. There are also tons of memes, and the only thing that I will say is this. If we do not get an official Clippy skin in Overwatch or in the next version of Call of Duty, someone has failed at their jobs, period. All right, moving on to some actual dev news. .NET MAUI Preview 12 is now available, and I know it feels like it was just last week that I was talking about .NET MAUI Preview 11, but Preview 12 is already here. And as David says in his blog post, the team is getting close to shipping its first stable release, so that means that the team has started to shift towards quality improvements and stabilization as opposed to new features. But there are still some new things to highlight, including some new documentation, flyout view handler implemented on Android, Z-index property added, .NET 6 unification in iOS types, and Windows extended toolbar non-shell. And so I've got a link to David's blog post in the show notes in the description, and you can also give them feedback. Next up, I want to point out an awesome new open source Windows app called DevToys, and it bills itself as a Swiss Army knife for developers, and it's an offline Windows app that helps developers in daily tasks. It is incredible. It includes a ton of really great utilities like a JSON to YAML converter and vice versa, a JWT decoder, text comparer, a hash generator. It has a markdown preview tool, an image compressor, a regex texter. It's really slick. And it also has a cool smart detection mode where it'll show you the best tool to use based on the content of your clipboard. And this is the work of Etienne Badeau, a Microsoft employee on the Visual Studio team, but this is his own personal project. And as I mentioned, it's completely open source. And it's a great app. It has so many nice features, so congrats to Etienne. I can't wait to see how it continues to develop, and I've got a link to the app and the GitHub page in the show notes and the description. Next up, I want to give a shout out to the latest episode of Azure Fun Bytes, which is a show that Jay Gordon does each week to learn more about the fundamentals and foundations that make up Azure. And this episode was all about serverless and how to write Azure durable functions with Laurent Bouillon, a great friend of mine. And Laurent shows off how he used durable functions to automate important processes at Microsoft, including updating web pages and helping to create the Learn Live series of shows. It's a really great episode and a great show, so great work, Jay and Laurent, and a link to the episode is in the show notes and the description down below. All right, next up, over at dev.to, Daniel Przybylski, and I'm sorry for butchering that last name, he wrote a great guide about how to create PowerShell commandlets in VS Code. And what's great about Daniel's use case is that he's using PowerShell in VS Code, but he's not necessarily developing for Windows. He's building commandlets that can work across Windows, Mac, and Linux. It's a really great tutorial, so check it out in the show notes and the description. And next up, I want to mention that the Microsoft Edge team had a really great look back at 2021 for all the stuff that the team has worked on for developers, including the enhancements that they made to the DevTools, which is some of my favorite features, PWA, some new APIs, and of course the coolest news, which was Microsoft Edge on Linux. So you can check out the blog post in the show notes and the description down below, and if you're not checking out all the cool stuff that the Edge team is bringing to the table, you're missing out, so be sure to keep up with them. Okay, next, speaking of cool stuff, I want to just talk about the utility Ventoy. This isn't really news per se, though I think the latest release came out like 2 weeks ago. This is more of like Christina discovered something cool and she wants others to know. All right, so Ventoy is a utility that works on Windows and Linux, and it's hands down the easiest way that I found to create bootable USB thumb drives, especially for operating system images. For whatever reason, the process of creating bootable USB drives on both Linux and Windows can be frustrating. But for me, the most frustrating part is that I usually have to waste like an entire thumb drive for a single ISO image, and then my 32 gig drive could be used for a bunch of different images of Linux distros or Windows. And this is where Ventoy comes in. It basically puts a bootloader on your USB drive, and then there's a grub menu, and then you just drag in whatever your VHD or IMG or WIM files onto it, and then you can boot up from that drive and select what image you want. But what's really slick is that it works with Secure Boot, and that was how it came in handy for me recently when I was wanting to install a new Linux distro on a drive that I also have dual booted with Windows 11. But to get that to work, first I would have to disable Secure Boot, which was an entire thing. And it was, a giant just pain to disable Secure Boot, boot the USB, then re-enable Secure Boot. But Ventoy basically supports Secure Boot. You can actually use it with your EFI, and it'll install a shim if you enable that feature. And so now I have a bunch of different Linux distros and even insider versions of Windows 11 all on a thumb drive that I can boot up. So it's great. It's free and open source. I've got a link to the app and its GitHub page in the show notes in the description down below. And now it's time for my pick of the week. Okay, so all credit for finding this goes to my old pal Andrew Lazuski over at Gizmodo and the game at Hackaday. A YouTuber by the name of Mangy Dog, that's his YouTube name, basically has spent the last several years recreating tricorders from the Star Trek show Voyager, including creating his own custom PSP encode for the project. It's incredible, and I wish that I both had the skills and the time to recreate props from my favorite TV show. So I've got links in the show notes in the description for his YouTube series. It's really fascinating, and his work is incredible. Let me know in the comments down below what type of prop you would recreate from your favorite show if you could, as well as any other comments on the shows we talked about this week. If you liked this episode, go ahead and give us a like on YouTube. It really helps us out, and be sure to subscribe to Microsoft Developer for all of your nerd needs. See you next time.